The northern lights danced across the Norwegian sky as Nathaniel Foster made his final rounds at the remote medical outpost. 10 years as a combat medic had taught him to trust his instincts, and tonight something felt off. The facility's proximity sensors had been glitching all evening, picking up strange electromagnetic disturbances that the tech team couldn't explain. He paused at the window, watching ice crystals form intricate patterns on the glass. The outpost, nestled high in the mountains, was supposed to be a quiet posting, a place to recover from his last deployment. But the silence felt heavy tonight, pregnant with possibility. The first explosion shook the building's foundation. Nathaniel grabbed his medical kit and weapon, muscle memory from years of combat taking over. Through the reinforced windows, he caught glimpses of strange lights in the sky, too fast and too precise to be natural phenomena. His radio crackled with static as he tried to reach the command center. The second explosion was closer, and this time he saw it, a streak of silver and blue cutting through the aurora before disappearing behind the nearest peak. Whatever it was, it hadn't been trying to hit the outpost. It looked more like something had been shot down. Against all protocol and common sense, Nathaniel headed for the garage. If something had crashed up there, there might be survivors who needed help. That's what he told himself, anyway. He couldn't quite explain the pulling sensation in his chest, the certainty that he needed to be there. The snowmobile's engine roared to life as he guided it up the treacherous mountain path. The crash site wasn't hard to find, a long trench had been carved through the snow, ending in a smoking crater. But what he found there made him question everything he thought he knew about reality. The craft was like nothing he'd ever seen, its hull seeming to shift colors in the aurora's light. But it was the figure pulling itself from the wreckage that stopped him cold. Tall and athletic, with skin that shimmered like polished titanium and hair the color of deep space. She moved like a warrior, even injured, and the weapon in her hand was definitely not of Earth origin. "Don't move, human," she commanded in perfect English, though her voice carried harmonics he'd never heard in any earthly language. "Your kind has interfered enough already." Nathaniel slowly raised his hands, medical kit still dangling from one. "I'm a doctor," he said calmly, falling back on years of experience dealing with wounded and hostile patients. "You're bleeding." "Your concern is noted and dismissed," she replied, but he could see her favoring her left side. Whatever had shot her down had done serious damage. "This situation is beyond your comprehension." "Try me," Nathaniel answered, taking a careful step forward. "I've treated wounds in every combat zone on Earth. Those burns on your side need attention, regardless of what planet you're from." Her weapon never wavered, but he saw something flicker in her eyes, surprise, perhaps, at his lack of fear. Or maybe just pain. "I am Commander Riven of the Stellar Guard," she said finally. "And if you take one more step, I will be forced to dash." She never finished the threat. Her legs buckled, the blood loss finally taking its toll. Nathaniel lunged forward, catching her before she hit the ground. She was surprisingly light in his arms, her skin cool to the touch. "Don't touch me." She managed to growl, but there was more confusion than menace in her voice now. "Little late for that," Nathaniel muttered, already assessing her injuries. The burns were unlike anything he'd seen before, but the principles of trauma care had to be universal, right? "I'm getting you inside before we both freeze to death. You can shoot me after I stop the bleeding." As he carried her back to his snowmobile, Riven's head lolled against his shoulder. "You're either very brave or very foolish, human," she whispered. "I get that a lot," Nathaniel replied, securing her as best he could. "I'm Nathaniel, by the way. And I have a feeling this is going to be an interesting night." Above them, more light streaked across the sky. Something told him that whatever had shot down Commander Riven wasn't finished hunting. The race back to the outpost was about to begin, and with it, an adventure that would change both their worlds forever. The wind howled around them as Nathaniel guided the snowmobile back down the treacherous path, every bump drawing a suppressed grunt of pain from his unusual passenger. He had 1,000 questions, but they would have to wait. Right now, his only priority was keeping her alive long enough to get answers. The medical bay's harsh lighting cast strange shadows across Commander Riven's metallic skin as Nathaniel worked to stabilize her condition. Her alien physiology made everything a challenge, even reading her vital signs required improvisation. But years of battlefield medicine had taught him to adapt. "Your technique is adequate," Riven murmured, watching him work with those unnaturally intense eyes. "Though primitive." "You're welcome," Nathaniel replied dryly, applying a regenerative compound he'd found in a compartment of her suit. The substance seemed to respond to her biology, knitting the burned tissue together. "Want to tell me who's trying to kill you?" "That would be unwise." She attempted to sit up, but Nathaniel firmly pushed her back down. To his surprise, she allowed it. "The less you know, the safer you'll be." "Pretty sure that ship sailed when I picked you up in the snow," he countered, checking the strange readings on his modified medical scanner. "Those weren't random attacks. They were targeting you specifically." Riven was silent for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she spoke, her voice lower. "There are factions within the Stellar Guard who believe Earth should be dealt with. Your species' rapid technological advancement has not gone unnoticed. And you disagree with them?" "I believe in justice, not genocide." She winced as he cleaned another wound. "I discovered evidence of their plans. They decided I was a liability." Before Nathaniel could respond, the outpost's perimeter alarms shrieked to life. He rushed to the window, his heart sinking at what he saw. 3 black helicopters were approaching, their sides unmarked. "Not military, at least not officially." "They're here," Riven said grimly, forcing herself to stand. "Your government has more knowledge of us than you realize. And more traitors than they know." "We need to move," Nathaniel said, quickly gathering essential supplies. "There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to Dash." The explosion cut him off, rocking the entire facility. Through the smoke, figures in advanced tactical gear began pouring in. Their weapons looked like a hybrid of human and alien technology. "Behind me." Riven shoved Nathaniel aside with surprising strength, raising her recovered weapon. The air crackled with energy as she fired, her movements fluid despite her injuries. 2 attackers fell, their armor smoking. But more were coming. Nathaniel grabbed his own weapon, years of combat training taking over. "The tunnel entrance is through the lab," he shouted over the chaos. "We need to move now." They fought their way through the facility, Riven's advanced weapons complementing Nathaniel's tactical experience. But he could see her wounds were taking their toll, her movements becoming less precise, her breathing more labored. "You should leave me," she said as they reached the tunnel entrance. "I'm compromised." "Not happening," Nathaniel replied, laying down covering fire as she worked to override the security lock. "I didn't patch you up just to abandon you to these bastards." The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a dark passage leading into the mountain. Behind them, voices and footsteps grew closer. "You're either honorable or insane," Riven muttered as they entered the tunnel. "Possibly both." "I get that a lot too." The tunnel door sealed behind them just as another explosion rocked the facility. Emergency lights cast a red glow through the passage as they moved deeper into the mountain. Nathaniel tried not to think about all the classified equipment and research they were leaving behind, or how he was going to explain any of this to his superiors, assuming they survived. "There's a ranger station about 10 kilometers from here," he said, checking their supplies. "If we can make it there, Dash." "They'll have satellites tracking us," Riven interrupted. "And worse." She stumbled slightly, catching herself against the wall. "There are things hunting us that your technology can't detect." Nathaniel moved to support her, noting how she no longer flinched from his touch. "Then we'll deal with those too." But first, we need to redress those wounds and make a plan. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Why are you helping me? Your career, your life, you're risking everything for an alien you just met. Because it's the right thing to do, he answered simply. And because something tells me whatever these people are planning, it's bigger than just you or me. A sound echoed through the tunnel behind them, something between a growl and mechanical whine. Riven's expression hardened. They've released the hunters, she said. Run. As they raced through the darkness, Nathaniel realized his quiet posting had just become ground zero for a conflict that would change everything. But looking at the warrior running beside him, he couldn't bring himself to regret his choices. The hunt was on, and their only hope lay in trusting each other, even if that trust went against everything they'd ever known. The mountain storm raged around them as Nathaniel and Riven emerged from a hidden crevice in the rocks. They'd spent hours evading the hunters in the tunnel system, only to surface into a whiteout. The wind howled, driving snow and ice horizontal, but it was their best chance at losing their pursuers. Your planet's weather is aggressive, Riven observed, her voice barely audible over the storm. Despite her injuries, she moved with fluid grace through the deep snow. Says the woman who crashed a spaceship into it, Nathaniel replied, checking their heading on a compass that was acting increasingly erratic. The closer the hunters got, the more their alien technology interfered with Earth equipment. A sound cut through the storm, that same mechanical growl they'd heard in the tunnels, but closer now. Much closer. Down. Riven tackled Nathaniel into the snow as something massive leaped over them. Through the swirling white, he caught glimpses of gleaming metal and bioorganic components. The hunter was easily 3 meters tall, moving with a predatory grace that seemed impossible for its size. What the hell is that thing? Nathaniel whispered, reaching for his weapon. Quantum tracking beast, Riven answered, her own weapon humming to life. They lock onto their target's unique energy signature. They don't stop until they catch their prey, or die trying. The hunter turned, its sensory array focusing on them. Multiple targeting lasers pierced the storm, creating a deadly web of light around them. Any weaknesses? Nathaniel asked, falling into a combat stance beside her. Several. None that your weapons can exploit. She glanced at him, a hint of concern crossing her features. Run. I'll hold it off. Not happening. Nathaniel checked his remaining ammunition. You said these things track energy signatures? Then let's give it something to track. He pulled out one of the emergency flares he'd grabbed from the outpost, modified with components from Riven's medical supplies. The alien technology reacted with the flare's chemicals, creating an intense energy signature. You're full of surprises, human, Riven said, understanding dawning in her eyes. Nathaniel, he corrected, activating the flare. If we're going to die together, you might as well use my name. The hunter charged, its massive form cutting through the storm like a blade. Nathaniel threw the modified flare far to their left, its energy signature now amplified to match Riven's quantum signature. The beast changed direction mid-leap, following the stronger signal. Move. Nathaniel grabbed Riven's arm, pulling her in the opposite direction. They ran through the storm, using its fury as cover. Behind them, an explosion lit up the white landscape, the hunter discovering its prey was a trap. But their victory was short-lived. More mechanical howls echoed through the mountains. The hunters traveled in packs. There's a survival bunker 2 kilometers east, Nathaniel said as they ran. If we can reach it. An energy blast cut through the air between them, forcing them to dive in opposite directions. Through the snow, dark figures emerged, human soldiers in advanced tactical gear. Surrender the alien, a modulated voice commanded. This is your only warning, Foster. They know who you are, Riven observed, taking cover behind a boulder. Yeah, and they're about to know what I think of their warning. Nathaniel opened fire, his shots precise despite the conditions. 2 soldiers went down, but more were advancing. Riven moved like lightning, her weapon firing bursts of energy that cut through the soldiers' advanced armor. But Nathaniel could see her injuries were slowing her down, the earlier fight had taken its toll. The mechanical hulls were getting closer. They were running out of time. "The bunker," Nathaniel shouted over the chaos. "We make a break for it on my mark." "Your species is remarkably stubborn," Riven called back, taking down another soldier. "You have no idea." Nathaniel pulled out his last modified flare. "Ready?" Their eyes met through the storm, and something passed between them, trust, understanding, maybe something more. Riven nodded. Nathaniel threw the flare high into the air, where it exploded in a burst of quantum energy. The hunters immediately changed course, drawn to the powerful signature. At the same time, the human soldiers were forced to shield their eyes from the blast. Now! They ran together through the storm, covering each other's blind spots like they'd fought side by side for years instead of hours. The bunker's entrance appeared ahead, a heavy metal door set into the mountainside. Nathaniel punched in the access code while Riven provided cover fire. The door opened with a grinding sound that was lost in the wind. They barely made it inside before the first hunter slammed into the door behind them. The reinforced metal groaned but held. "That won't stop them for long," Riven said, checking her weapon's charge. "Or your former colleagues." "They're not my colleagues," Nathaniel replied grimly, securing the inner locks. "And this bunker has a few surprises they don't know about." He moved to a control panel, revealing a hidden section. The bunker's true purpose became clear as lights activated throughout the facility, illuminating advanced research equipment and monitoring stations. "You're more than just a combat medic," Riven said, studying him with new interest. "Let's just say I had my suspicions about visitors like you." Nathaniel activated the bunker's defense systems. "I've been preparing for something like this. I just didn't expect it to happen quite so dramatically." "You continue to surprise me, Nathaniel Foster." The bunker's monitoring systems hummed with activity as Nathaniel pulled up classified files on the main display. Riven stood close behind him, her presence both commanding and somehow comforting despite the dire situation. "Your government has been monitoring our activities for decades," she said, studying the data scrolling across the screen. "But this level of detail, someone on my side has been feeding them information. And someone on my side has been providing alien tech to private military contractors," Nathaniel added, bringing up footage of weapons tests that combined human and alien technology. "The same contractors who are trying to break down our door right now." Another impact shook the bunker, but the reinforced walls held. The hunters outside had settled into a siege pattern, probing for weaknesses while the human forces coordinated their approach. "You still haven't told me why you were really stationed here," Riven said, turning to face him. Her metallic skin caught the blue light from the displays, creating an ethereal effect. Nathaniel sighed, finally ready to share his own secrets. "I'm part of a shadow organization within Earth's military. We call ourselves the Guardians. Our job is to monitor and protect humanity from threats they're not ready to know about yet." "Like me?" There was an edge to her voice. "Like the people hunting you," he corrected. "We've known about the militant faction in your stellar guard for months. Their plans go way beyond Earth." Before Riven could respond, one of the security monitors flashed red. A new vehicle was approaching through the storm, a massive transport with energy signatures unlike anything they'd seen yet. "That's impossible," Riven whispered, her composure cracking for the first time. "That's a Stellar Guard command vehicle. But the only one with clearance to deploy that would be..." "Who?" "My father. High Commander Theron." Her expression hardened. "The leader of the faction I was trying to stop." The revelation hung heavy in the air between them. Nathaniel watched as various emotions played across Riven's face: pain, anger, determination. "You knew he was involved," he said softly. "That's why you've been carrying this burden alone. He raised me to be a warrior, to protect our people." Her voice was tight with controlled emotion. "When I discovered his plans to cleanse Earth to make way for our expansion, I couldn't stay silent. But I never thought he'd send hunters to kill his own daughter. Politics has always meant more to him than family." She moved to the weapons cache, checking her energy rifle with mechanical precision. "We need to move. This bunker won't hold against the weapons on that transport." Nathaniel caught her arm gently. "We're not running this time." She turned, ready to argue, but something in his expression made her pause. "Look at these readings," he said, pulling up new data on the display. "Your father's transport, the hunters, the human mercenaries, they're all using the same power source. Experimental quantum cores that are highly unstable." Understanding dawned in Riven's eyes. "If we could trigger a cascade failure, we could disable their weapons and vehicles all at once." Nathaniel smiled grimly. "But we'll need to get to the transport to plant the catalyst." "A suicide mission," Riven observed, but there was a hint of admiration in her voice. "Only if we fail." Nathaniel began gathering equipment. "I've got prototype shields that should protect us from the quantum backlash. And I'm pretty good at improvising." "Yes," Riven said softly, "you are." She stepped closer, her hand resting on his chest. "Why are you really doing this, Nathaniel? This isn't just about duty anymore." His heart raced at her touch, her skin cool against his. "Maybe I'm tired of watching people with power decide the fate of others. Or maybe I've found something worth fighting for that's bigger than duty." Their eyes met, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions. For a moment, the chaos outside faded away, leaving only this connection that defied the boundaries of their worlds. The bunker shook again, breaking the spell. But something had shifted between them, a barrier falling away. "We'll need a distraction," Riven said, her tactical mind engaging even as her hand lingered on his chest. "The hunters will be drawn to my energy signature. Leave that to me." Nathaniel activated a hidden panel, revealing specialized equipment. "I've been working on something that might just give us an edge." As they prepared for their desperate mission, Nathaniel caught Riven watching him with an expression that mixed wonder and concern. "Having second thoughts?" he asked. "About the mission?" "No." She checked her weapon one final time. "About letting a human make me feel things I never expected to feel?" "Perhaps." Nathaniel loaded his own weapons, a smile tugging at his lips. "Tell you what, we survive this, and we can figure out those feelings together." "Deal," she replied, and for the first time, he saw her smile, a sight that made all the danger ahead seem worth it. The bunker's sensors showed their enemies moving into position for a final assault. Time was running out. But as Nathaniel looked at the warrior beside him, he knew they had a chance. Sometimes the strongest bonds were forged in the heart of battle, even between people from different worlds. "Ready?" he asked. Riven nodded, her warrior spirit blazing in her eyes. "With you?" "Always." The mountain storm had reached its peak as Nathaniel and Riven emerged from the bunker's emergency tunnel. The prototype shields hummed around them, barely visible except for the way they bent the falling snow. Behind them, explosions rocked the main bunker entrance, their diversion working perfectly. "The transport's quantum signature is overwhelming the hunters' tracking systems," Riven said, her voice clear through their linked communicators. "But it won't fool them for long. Then let's make this count." Nathaniel activated the quantum catalyst, its core pulsing with dangerous energy. One wrong move and it would trigger prematurely, taking them both out. They moved through the storm like shadows, years of combat experience guiding their steps. The massive transport loomed ahead, its alien architecture both beautiful and threatening. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their advanced armor gleaming. Riven. A deep voice cut through their communicators, impossible to block. My daughter. Still running from your destiny? High Commander, Riven replied, her voice cold. Still hiding behind others while you plot genocide? Evolution, child. Humanity's time is ending. They'll destroy themselves eventually, we're simply accelerating the inevitable. You're wrong, Nathaniel cut in. Every time humanity faces extinction, we adapt. We survive. We grow stronger. Ah, the human she's chosen to corrupt her judgment. High Commander Theron's voice dripped with disdain. You prove my point, warrior. Consorting with lesser beings, betraying your own kind. The only betrayal, Riven said as they reached the transport's blind spot, is turning our people into conquerors instead of guardians. They moved in perfect sync, taking down the guards with precise shots before they could raise the alarm. Nathaniel placed charges while Riven hacked the transport's security, their timing honed by the battles they'd faced together. But as the side hatch opened, a massive energy blast threw them apart. High Commander Theron emerged, his armor more advanced than anything they'd seen. The quantum core in his suit pulsed with barely contained power. I gave you every advantage, he said, advancing on Riven. Trained you to be the perfect warrior. And you throw it away for these primitives? You train me to protect, Riven replied, rolling to her feet. To serve justice. I haven't forgotten my training, I've honored it. She engaged him in combat, her movements a blur of deadly grace. But her father's enhanced armor gave him the advantage. A brutal strike sent her flying back, shields flickering. Nathaniel seized his chance, sliding the quantum catalyst toward the transport's core. But Theron's blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Weak, the High Commander sneered. Like all your kind. Strong enough to see the truth, Nathaniel gasped, revealing the detonator in his hand. And smart enough to plan ahead. Multiple explosions rocked the transport, the charges they'd planted creating chaos. In that moment of distraction, Riven struck. Her weapon, modified with Nathaniel's Earth technology, pierced her father's defenses. Impossible, Theron stumbled, his armor failing. Our technology is superior. It's not about superior technology, Riven said, standing over him. It's about what you fight for. The quantum catalyst began to pulse faster, its chain reaction building. Around them, the Hunters and Human Forces weapons started to fail as the cascade spread. It's over, Commander, Nathaniel said, joining Riven. Your forces are disabled. Earth's governments have been alerted to the conspiracy. There won't be any invasion. Theron laughed, a harsh sound. You think this ends with me? Our people will never accept humans as equals. This war will come, with or without me. Maybe, Riven replied. But when it does, humanity will have allies among our people. Change is coming, Father. Evolution. Just not the kind you planned. The transport systems began to overload, warnings blaring. Theron's armor sparked and failed completely, leaving him helpless. The quantum backlash will kill us all, he warned. No, Nathaniel said, activating their enhanced shields. It won't. The explosion that followed lit up the mountain like a new sun. The quantum cascade rippled outward, disabling every piece of advanced technology in its path. But inside their shields, Nathaniel and Riven stood together, protecting even the man who had tried to destroy them. When it was over, the storm had cleared. Stars peeked through breaks in the clouds, the same stars that had brought them together. Your father will face justice from both our peoples, Nathaniel said softly. Yes. Riven watched as human and guardian forces moved in to secure the area. There will be changes on both sides. Barriers broken. New alliances formed. Scared? She turned to him, her expression softening. With you? Never. Their kiss was witnessed by 2 worlds worth of stars, a promise of something new. Something revolutionary. So, Nathaniel said when they finally parted, about those feelings we were going to figure out. Riven's laugh was like music. I believe I'm starting to understand them quite well. Around them, humans and aliens began working together to clean up the aftermath. It wasn't peace yet, there would be struggles ahead, prejudices to overcome, trust to build. But it was a start. Your father was right about one thing, Nathaniel said as they walked toward the future together. Evolution is inevitable. But it's not about one species dominating another. No, Riven agreed, taking his hand. It's about growing stronger together. Above them, the aurora danced across the sky, Earth's natural light show celebrating a new beginning. A reminder that the most beautiful things in the universe come from unlikely combinations. The war was over. The real adventure was just beginning.